did pretty good against them. I'm just scared of them right now.
Ravens is the only one.
Ravens is all right.
Yeah.
They're hot. Of
Yeah, go ahead and get them out of there.
course, we beat them every time we play them.
Uh-huh. My nephew Silas is 5, you know, and he's beside himself because we lost on Sunday, because he does not understand. I said, well, they let some of the, you know, that's why you didn't see some of the main guys, they're resting, so they get hurt the next game. But we lost. He's like, I don't care. He was very upset.
I like what Aaron Rodgers told his team. 3 words he says, don't get COVID.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, stay home. Yeah.
They're definitely doing Green Bay here, not a football game anyway.
Well, it's cold right now.
So much there.
At least it's cold, maybe we'll keep them all in. Yeah, I was thinking about our guys, like, just stay home, don't be doing anything squirrely.
That gives them a big advantage for the teams coming through.
Yeah. I would love, I know this is a very lofty wish, but if Alex Smith could take out Tom Brady next week, that would be awesome. It's a lofty goal, but I'm like, wouldn't that be cool?
I can't believe his comeback.
I can
That's
do it.
unreal.
Did you watch the show? It was crazy. I
I
didn't
thought he
realize how
was
bad
gonna
it
lose
was.
his leg, I thought he might die, I mean, it was bad.
They had to rebuild his calf from his hamstring, and I didn't realize how bad it was.
Definitely comeback player of the year there.
Oh,
That's
yeah, for
unreal.
sure.
Hi, how are you, Doug? Hi.
So, yeah, walking.
Yeah, I did. Can't get by with anything here in town. I brought that, I was gonna take it back to the library.
Okay,
And I thought, oh, I'll just bring it to you and you can take it before I take it.
so I can run the fine up for you?
Huh?
I can run the fine up for you?
Do what?
I can run the fine up for you?
That's right. Yeah, but you will pay it.
Okay.
There's no fines this year though. That's a promise. Oh, so Automie does not charge fines.
Yeah, well, and Paola, I think they started that at the beginning of the year.
They're not charging.
But that's, a lot of libraries have kind of moved that way. Feeling like, what was it, the people, the fines don't keep people turning in books. If they're gonna be late, they're gonna be late, and so it makes it kind of punitive, and some people may not want to do the library because they know they're gonna have a fine, so the idea is it's hopefully encourage people to use the library
Yeah.
rather than being worried about a fine, so.
Well, what did I do? Go off and leave my papers that I needed for tonight. I was so efficient. I even got out my LK and, you know, I bet I left it laying in my car. Justin and them were down there waiting, so maybe not.
Are they,
Maybe I hooked it all together too.
are they waiting to come in, or?
They're not ready yet.
Okay.
That's why I was gonna say, well, why don't we start on the second item, but I better go find the second item. Oh dear.
Well, that's the water rates, so we start that, we may be a little bit.
Oh, good. Oh, here's a quarter. Huge. That was the program. I just got home. People got their stimulus money and boy, are we stupid. Maybe that's the Walmart, it's under.
Pick up the 19 crates,
Maybe so.
that explains it, possibly. Did there another something? Okay.
Probably none of that is the internet down.
With the what?
Internet's down,
Oh, yeah.
so if the internet's down, they can't get in.
Just have to watch it later, yeah.
Has anyone heard why it's down?
What I understand is supposedly there was a fiber cut someplace, that heard that Century Link cut suddenly fiber up around Spring Hill, and that's what, but I don't know the truth of that.
Wouldn't you think they'd call somebody and have a courtesy to, you know?
They don't care, we're just one of thousands of small towns that they have, and they don't care.
Amen. Question. And when you call them, you can't get in. They don't. I held for over an hour one day. I just thought, I want to wait and see. Then everybody answered.
We got charged, well, they tried to charge $60 for a new remote. We had our old remote for 9 years and needed a replacement. And Brian's like, just sit on the step, you don't have to teach us how to use it. If we can pay $30 for a new remote.
Takes you 10 minutes to try to get to a person.
Mhm.
Oh, you can even get this, I mean, it's hard to even get this person now.
They try to hide it, so you have to either go on the internet first.
Oh, yeah.
or
Oh,
something.
Yeah. Go on the internet to report to the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now, a year ago, I used to be able to call in and, you know, for help, and it was pretty reasonable, but it's
Well, I
last
don't-
year.
I don't know, because Alltrace has bought it. And I don't know when that happened, I don't know if that was part of that change. Because they still go by suddenly, but they use. That's where you had to set up the table, that way the mic can pick you
Oh,
up.
gotcha, okay. So you just want us to fill these?
Yeah, yep,
That's like that one's good.
I can see everything like this is next to each other.
we'll just keep going. How you doing?
Pretty good in yourself.
Are you still there?
You just tell me where you want me to go.
You're good, you're good. Well,
Are you sure?
Yeah, there you
Well,
go.
we just saw already scream run out, so I'm guessing we got another couple minutes.
Oh, she must have went to the,
yeah.
we could have got a copy, I think.
tell you, in case we're living in one of these, that the other two didn't have their parents. We were all really good all our respects. And I got, my girls, we got 5 left, 7 from their parents. Hey, hey. Well, I'm good, just over there's bruised.
The boys are like, whatever.
That's what Shayla came home and was telling me. And I said, so how did the boys go? I was like, didn't hear anybody say anything, but then hardly text me midway through the day today. So I thought, yeah, it sounds like maybe the boys too, but then it was just
You know, I did that on purpose so you all would think that he wasn't late. I want you to feel welcome. Oh, well, okay. And first up is the Walters Park ball field. Before we start, I want you to remember, when you said 4 years, it has been, but take into consideration, the wheels of government do not turn quickly. They do turn, but not fast. And we all want this to be a good project that we're all happy with, and it's important we all get on the same page with the same information. I think you and I have talked about that. And we are interested because this is something our citizens voted on. But as a community, as a board, and as a council, we have everybody in the community to answer to, versus you have your rec commission, not commission, but you know your board that you're used for. So I think with that being said, you want to introduce your guest? We all know Justin, don't we? We all know.
So this is Scott Willoughby that's here with me. I'm Justin Snell for anybody that's picking this up. And this is Brian with Man Sports.
Hi, Brian.
And basically, Artie, to reiterate, I absolutely, kind of like we talked about, I acknowledge the 4 years, and I acknowledge that there's things that can slow up the process, et cetera. But kind of like you and I talked about, the other side of that coin is, especially in a local city government like this, it's an ever-evolving target, and it's an ever-evolving council.
That's true.
So our opportunities, as you and anybody who's been in Paola for the last 30 years can testify, the opportunities for something like this to go through and have people that are in support in a position to do it have not lined up for 30 years. It's actually been more, but I can testify to 30 because that's when I started playing ball at 7, and that's where I picked it up. And so that's part of the urgency. The other side of our urgency as we go through this, we'll have him explain this. We have some timing issues. We also are sitting in a position, I can't go into any more detail, I wish I could, where we're gonna have neighboring towns and we're gonna start putting up new stuff. And we're
face
in,
that, I think, with everything, Justin, in regard to other communities and facilities. But I think that we build the very best we can, and we'll be fine. I appreciate other communities that can do things to move their communities forward too. That's important to them. And I applaud them for doing that. We just need to concentrate on what we do, and what we can do for our community.
and I respect that. I just want, the reason I mentioned that is because we have fought tooth and nail for the last 3 years to bring our kids home. And we've got our kids home, and because of the things like COVID and some other unforeseen items, we're sitting on the ropes right now, because some of them took gambles that we didn't. And we've got to bring the kids back home. before they find a permanent settlement, because it's generational. If we don't lock it in to where everybody's staying here and they start to venture out again, you've seen it the past generation, we're going to lose our base. And at that point, just like we talked about the pool being a quality of life and the other things, getting our kids active is probably as high on anybody's list. I can't imagine us having a conversation with somebody where it's not their high priority life, because they're the ones that are following us. And that's a big thing. If we don't have our numbers to house it so that those lower level kids are able to play locally, the kids that are dying will go where they need to go to play. And then the local ones are the ones who are left out in the cold like they have been at different times.
At different times, and
And so that's a big part of my urgency. The other part before he presents is Paola has sat in a weird, unique position of, it's been volunteer driven. Other communities have done different things, but Paola's always been volunteer driven. And it's worked pretty well for the most part, from the logistics standpoint. The problem we always run into is money. And here, this is the big thing, and it's why this was so attractive when you and I talked, heck, 3-4 years ago, when Jay and I ground through this for a year and a half with Scott, on why this mechanism is so attractive, because it was going to release the biggest burden to Paola on one of our biggest blight areas. It was going to take and make it a sales tax, not a general budget item, to maintain those fields, because the city has owned half of it.
But we didn't get control of all those
For a
fields
while.
until 2019, I believe it was at the end of 2019, because a lot of those fields were legion.
That is correct. It was about a half split, to be honest. It was the 3 ball fields were, and then the other ones were owned by the city, and it fell a little bit lopsided on the city's half. That's a problem that we ran into, and that was the big thing 4 years ago. That conversation that took place was, hey, we're running out of volunteers.
Deal with the legion, it was something they had to reconcile themselves with, that this was the direction they wanted to go.
That and the fact that your volunteer base was complete.
Yes.
Because what was happening was, and it's what I'm up against right now, so that everybody gets a full picture. To keep the volunteer base going, you have to have the feeling of mutual enlistment. And that's the thing, if I've sold, and Scott will testify, sometimes he jokes because I'm a little too optimistic and I'm a little too high on the possibilities, but I have sold my board and we have built quite a board of volunteers based off of the fact that this was coming through. Based off of all the conversations. I didn't put words in anybody's mouth. We took things straight at face value. Now, we have shifted city managers. We have shifted a council person. So obviously there's things that could change or things that they weren't part of to start with. So I'm not pressing that, but what I do want to do is to make it known, we've sold to get the volunteers and to build this back up like was requested on that premise. And on the premise that the city was as invested in this as we are. And I'm just being completely forthright. I kind of want to agree with that. I mean, from the get-go. Some people in our organization, a lot of people in the community, when we talked about the sales tax dollars and that this was coming through, when we pushed people to vote, believe it when we see it, was the thing that I've heard, I can't tell you how many times. And that it'll be used somewhere else.
You can't do that when it's in a sales tax and it's physical.
Well, but here we are, buddy.
Where, yes, and I understand.
There's a lot of flexibility where that can go.
I think everyone felt that the ball fields are a need, and the pool is a thing we really have to address. That's another big item. And we do want some left our streets, so we are aware of where this does need to be used. And I think that, we're all in support of our sports programs. Paola has been fortunate to have Iowa Sports has picked up the winter things. And I know how lucky we are with our softball and baseball volunteers. I'm one of them for many years. And we've always been very fortunate. So I don't think anyone's trying to renege or try to back out or anything, but we have to get the timing right too. We can't spend money yet until we get it figured out. And I'm not sure on the legalities here. Jay would have to, what do you say? Sid would have to do all of that. I don't even pretend to understand that. That's on Sid's plate. The part with the bonds and issuing them and how close you have to be to paying off the current ones. Because like Sid has told us, we cannot start collecting until December of this year. And I don't know what the time frame is on that, and Sid would have to be the one that would have to get into all of that in detail. But I think Sid's willing to work with us and work with you in any way he can to move this forward. Like I said, not everything is a city. We have to follow the guidelines too. And we can't do something that's not legal. That certainly is not.
I think we've actually sat around, all of us here, except Leanne wasn't here, we had somebody else here in that position. But we gave them the impression that we were all for this, that we were gonna,
I'm still all for it. I just have.
and they were under the assumption, the same as I was. Jay told us that we needed to get on this, like in March or April, go ahead and have it even before Sid got here, have them come and give a presentation. They've tried to give presentations.
Well, we had COVID. Nobody planned on it.
But since then, they could have gave a presentation. We've had other deals that give presentations.
But you know, we still have to live with our timeline on money. And I'm sure that's something we can work with, but we have to keep it legal. And I don't know on Congress, and that's up to Sid. And we have to involve Mary Carson to ask her, you know, that's written. We just have to get those answers, Justin.
With that said,
So, Sid, would it be illegal to go ahead with this?
No, not with the project, but we just have to get it where we're going. I don't.
but as far as the question I would have, because this is something I think that we want to get this cleared so that everybody's on the same page, because I feel like there's 3 different timelines that are in discussion and they're being merged into one time.
And I.
The thing that I'm struggling with is, I get it, Jay made the mistake on the first one, because the goal was, it passed in November, we were coming in December, and it was going to be on the January vote to bond and get it done. And then he found out from Mary Carson, but on the phone call where I sat with Jay and Mary Carson, unless she's made a second mistake, she presented that the bonds could be issued in October 2020. So either she's inaccurate there, or good, and I'm even okay, so that we're all on the count, so I'm concerned. Well, I'm even okay if we don't want to issue the bonds early. Brian will address that in the presentation.
Okay.
But what I do want to get to is, we're sitting at a point now where we all are in agreement. We have to do what is legal.
That's right.
And we all are in agreement that it sounds like that we want to move forward with the project. The thing that we're not, and where I want to make sure that what you guys feel is very clear and what we feel is very clear at the end of tonight, because to this point, we've only had the opportunity to discuss it with Sid and Randy, and me catching you all individually here and there, once I realized that it needed to happen that way.
Right, well.
But where we're at,
Is the same thing.
where we're at now is, we've got to get a mutual step in the right direction, and that can't just be, hey, we're all on board. We have to get something
We have
that's
to.
concrete,
I
that
agree.
we can't go rat because I can't take it back, like I told you, I'm fighting the daily for.
Yeah,
And I can't take it back and tell them, hey, we're going forward just on word of faith.
Well, this is why we're here tonight, is to,
So-
to get the first steps and get advice from Sid on how we can move this forward. So we need that information on the bond things and all this, but why don't we let him go on and make his presentation, and then we can, how's that?
Go ahead, Ryan.
Okay.
Yeah,
You do that,
well,
Ryan?
Yeah, first of all, thank you guys very much for the opportunity to be here. So what went from me just kind of being available for a call to a presentation, I don't know where that happened, but luckily I'm ready, I guess. Just very briefly, first of all, the work you guys are doing as a city council is tremendously important, as you guys all understand, and we understand that as well. And we do projects like this quite a bit, either with school boards, city councils, and so definitely understand the parameters on which you guys have to operate, and we will only operate above board and within those same parameters as well. So please know that we support you guys completely in timing and understanding and those types of things. Really, my goal is just to help. Our goal is Mary Sports Construction. So we're out of Meriden, Kansas, a small town outside Topeka. We're Kansas-owned, family-owned business, and we've done work at the Atlanta Falcons and the New York Jets and the Detroit Lions. But quite frankly, these are the projects that are most exciting to us. And the reason that we are out of Meriden, Kansas, is because our president and owner wants to build our community, that community. And so not only do we have Mammoth Sports Construction, but we own a pharmacy there in town, we own a mechanic shop, all those things to keep jobs and to keep things growing. And so we get how important small communities are and how important the youth are. And so that's why we love these projects, because we have the opportunity to see firsthand how far and above of an impact these end up having on the community after it's all said and done. And we get to be involved early with some people maybe that question it or maybe aren't on board. And then to see them come around after it's done is one of the most fulfilling and rewarding things that we get to deal with because of the impact of participation levels in youth sports. And I think the research is undeniable, the impact that sports has on kids, on their future, and how beneficial it can be. And so that's why I love what I do. I spent 15 years in collegiate athletics, love working with college kids, but now I get to impact a whole bunch of kids in a whole bunch of different communities, and it's a lot of fun to see how that can happen. So our goal is really just to be a partner and to help answer questions, not to sell, not to push, just to be an advocate for the board, for the individuals with the rec commission, the kids, but really more so just to help walk you guys through maybe some of the sticking points or things maybe that don't make sense. And so that's why I volunteered to be here, just to really answer questions and help in any way that I possibly can. So I did print out, and that's why I was a couple minutes late. I was driving and stapling at the same time because I didn't know until the last minute I would be here.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
And this is what I have sent to Scott and Justin, I believe Sid has seen it as well.
It was sent via email.
Yeah.
I should have got that from Justin.
So what we were approached with is to utilize our expertise and previous projects to help develop a couple of different scenarios that would, I guess, give the help kind of tell the story that's trying to be told by this group. And so we've taken a lot of feedback from Justin and Scott. We had one meeting with Sid, but really what we're just trying to do is kind of present this to you guys and answer questions that you might have. And really, you've gone back and forth a number of times with just different options, different price points. How can we kind of again get things to the finish line for you guys if that's the goal? But we understand that everything can be different, and so that's why me being here just felt like maybe I can help answer some of those questions as they arise. So it won't necessarily be, I guess, as a presentation or a sales pitch. It's just maybe walking through, I guess, this packet. So introduction, and again, a big part of who we are is being family owned and Kansas owned. We are trusted at every level. We did K-State's football field, we've done KU football field, we've done the zoo. We've done work at all sorts of different colleges and high schools in the area. And we are affiliated with Field Turf, who has over 50% of the market share in artificial turf in the world. The next closest is less than 10. So while we feel that Mammoth Sports is the unquestioned kind of sports construction leader in the region, we also are able to back up with the best in the industry as far as materials, which is a big deal, especially when you're getting into longevity of fields and you're needing quality fibers and things that are going to last a long time, and the upkeep, all those things that come into play with facilities like that. So
What
that's
do you
our
think?
affiliation.
Okay, what's like the life cycle on this?
Sure. So I like to speak in warranty terms just because that's a guarantee. You know, I think again, our goal is not to sell or to push. Your typical warranty on a turf field will be 8 years. Now, on a baseball softball complex, you're going to get a much longer usage term out of that. You're probably somewhere 12 years to be very safe. Now, I always recommend that you start looking at potential replacement at the end of your warranty cycle just to be safe. The cost of replacing the turf is about 50% of the original cost to install it, because you've already done the base work, the drainage, all your rock is in place, all those types of things. So your next replacement period, which would be down the road, depending upon how well you maintain it, how well, it's really not based on usage, they're made to be used, but there are some small things as far as just maintenance that can be done in certain areas that really will help prolong the life.
Okay, tell us what those are.
Sure. So you have your main areas on the baseball softball complex. Obviously, your batter's boxes and your pitcher's mounts, either in softball or in baseball. And that's strictly because of the cleats and wearing repeatedly in one spot. So unlike a football field where you have 100 yards and you might get a lot of usage from the lineman, maybe between the lines, every single pitch has somebody on those areas. And so you get higher usage. So when all of our packages come with replacement sets. So about every 2 years, you can expect to replace those high use areas, and that's included in your pricing. But some things you can do to prolong that is simply taking the cup of rubber after every turning and you're throwing it down on those high use areas. You're taking a broom or a rake and you're raking it in, and you're just replenishing that system so that you're not, the next guys don't come in and they're not rubbing deeper into the fabric in the vacuum of that turf. So that's kind of what we mean on the small maintenance things that can be done. And that's a simple, oftentimes high school teams, it's your freshmen that are doing it, but in youth stuff, it can be your umpires as part of their responsibility after games or before games or kids. So it's very minimal, but it's something that makes a big difference. The other thing that Mammoth is willing to do as a partner in this project is donate annual maintenance for the fields ourselves. Over an 8-year span, that's about a $65,000 donation that would be to the city. And that is the best way to keep your facility new or longer, is by taking care of it the right way right off the bat. And that would be with art professionals coming down, checking the seams, checking the infill levels, fixing anything that is potentially wrong. And then we also guarantee the turf warranty with the workmanship warranty from Mammoth for the 8 years too. So
And that yearly they would come down and inspect that, or how?
yearly, yeah, every year. We bring down our big machine that cleans the turf, that redistributes the infill. It does a number of different things, and then our guys will come in and hand check certain areas to make sure that everything is safe and that the fields are operating at their best capacity possible, and that they're set up to last as long as possible. So that's that. So a duration period. Again, I like to speak to the warranty because that is really your guys' guarantee, if you will. And then there are a few factors that can either prolong the field or potentially not. So does that help?
Right, because I was wondering about maintenance upkeep, because that's something you'd have to budget in.
What would be?
The maintenance and upkeep, and you'd have to budget in, like if you plan on replacing the turf every 8 years or so, you have to figure that in.
Can I ask a question?
Okay, there you go.
Are you aware that field floods from time to time? And we never know when there's gonna be a flood.
We are aware, so what we have done on this original planning is basically our architects and engineers have taken a very high level look at everything. So, the next step or the thing before you really can get into all your final design and layouts is you have to go get your survey, you have to get your soil testing done. But based on what we have received as far as feedback and information, we feel like the fields are moved far enough away outside of that flood area, just based on, again, feedback. That is not our engineers having official survey reports, that is not us running our water flow analysis. None of that. That stuff is is more expensive. And so what we have done to this point has been pro bono, had no charge to the city or no charge to anyone. You start getting into those tests have to be done. We usually won't get into that until we have a letter of intent from the city stating, we're hiring Mammoth. However, we're not approving the project until we have final budgetary numbers. We can't get those budgetary numbers, those final budgetary numbers until we have the soil tests that come back, which we'll talk about soil stabilization or not, and then the water runoff and all those calculations based on the engineers and the survey. So that great point that has been discussed. But what we have addressed is looking at a very, very high level of moving those fields to where we feel that it's out of those areas. But again, that would not be able to be guaranteed until we have the survey back and we can run the calculations.
And they wouldn't be bound to anything until the survey was back, because the letter of intent, like we discussed, you would verify all that information before there would be anything started on the project.
Correct. Every expenditure would be approved, and all the letter of intent does basically is gives us permission to start working on the city's behalf and getting those things done. But then everything is negotiated, all of those things. But that's basically kind of what we see. To see the flop, you have to get some of those tests done. They range, it's about $8,000 total in those testings. Now that can vary. You guys have a lot of different area. So sometimes you have to get more borings tested. And then obviously anytime you're in a flood zone, then you're looking at potential additional water retention areas. And so that's how we saw flooding. So it's not the first time that we've been built fields in flood zones or areas that flood. It just takes some additional detention areas that we would utilize in our design. And again, that would be built with engineers, architects, with the city planning commission. The city would be involved in those meetings. City engineer typically is involved in those meetings, making sure that any kind of flood or where is that water being dumped, all of those things are taken into consideration before the final field designs are able to be laid out. So does that help?
To elaborate one step further, we don't have a signed report because it was going to cost us an additional $7,000, but we can get from our local engineer the same, like he's discussing, the same conversation. We paid for a survey. We had the engineer look at it to verify before we even engaged them to look at it, that he felt like that we were getting out of those areas. The other thing that we have, which because of the change of plans, I wasn't in a position today to make the printouts, but we have the highest flood in the last 50 years. We have aerials that show the water flow and how it goes around to the south and to the east of the areas where things are proposed. So you can actually see that, and it gives a great shot so you can actually see that the fair buildings are half underwater at the same time, for reference. But because for us, that's the biggest concern. We don't want to fight for 30 years to get something and it washed it in the river. So that was our first question on what we could do, where we can put it, and what would pass. And like Brian said, when they get to that point, if anything doesn't pass the litmus test, the smell test, whatever, obviously the plan adapts. If it means that you do a natural surface on that side of the road, or if it means that you change the layout across the road, it adapts within the budget. But there's nothing that binds us. It's just also hard to dump another, where we've already extended ourselves a little bit, hard to dump more on the front side to get that go ahead. their high level with his, put us in a position where we then would move forward and the engineers and architects are gonna design it anyway, so it gets us out of the picture.
Are you talking about all fields or just one field?
Well, so
Being out of the flood.
basically, we have this field here and the fire. But so right here, this arc is right now. Starting right about here, going all the way following this road. And that doesn't get worked
And where's the representation going?
right here.
Okay.
So this
No,
is all
that
north.
field doesn't.
This
Yeah,
field doesn't at all, and this one down here
No.
flooded, but we're pushing it back to the north as well, so it
When
changes.
you're pushing.
So basically, there's a minor field right on this river right now. And if the outfield goes here, and rather than build a nice field in the outfield with flood, we push it because it changes almost 3 foot in elevation from here to here. It's a dramatic increase, so by moving it to where it's even with this one more aesthetically pleasing, and it clears the flesh.
That's towards the concession
These
stand, right?
are fields that are already in place and they're natural. And so the thought process was that this one actually is really silver. And we have spent a good portion of money already getting it to a pretty nice place. We just need a couple of features for it, and move there would become just for practice. These fields would be overflow fields that we would still maintain, but they're not required. Like, it will make the scheduling easier, but if we get in rainy season, we're able to pivot and use these and still pull off the season, whereas in the past, when it hits rainy season, we're just stuck.
And that's why we went with that fourplex, because we can push those fields up towards that Legion building a little bit, get them away from the floodplain even further. And you're thinking about the Legion and how big it is, but both of these fields will be, like if you drive by there now, that outfield fence will just be a little bit further than where the infield dirt is right now. You know, so most of that outfield that you're thinking of that gets flooded is now going to get turned into park. Because the field's not probably half that size of the big field.
And that's big enough.
Yeah, it's big enough.
You can do baseball or softball.
Baseball,
That's it.
softball, that's the hope.
That's what we did, you know, when we took over, and that's probably one of the things I get most excited about is, it was, softball was here, baseball was here, Myola was here, and soccer was over here. Now they're all here. And by doing that, we have invested and will invest further when we do this in portable mountains. And by doing the portable mountains, instead of having multiple facilities, bathroom-wise and concession, we set them up at the one location around the bulk of the fields. And we're gonna do girls' nights and boys' nights. Because right now, our biggest contention is there's dance on Monday and Wednesday. So if we can put girls on Tuesday and Thursday and have them play on every single field in the complex, we fill our schedule, we've got a budgetable night of the week, and the boys are on Monday, and Wednesday. And it's a cool idea, and the energy we've gotten off of it, it's gonna work really well, but again, that's something that we've had a little bit harder time to do with our current setup with the natural fields, because we're gonna have to, it's another investment when I talk about the things we have to do before this season. We have mounds on 3 out of the 5 fields that we need to be playing unisex. We've got one field, which is Russell, that is in limbo. We've got money to spend there. Big or little? Big Russell, which unfortunately, we learned the last season that was played, we don't have the field numbers without it. We just, so those are the things that, why we got a little bit antsy and are a little bit antsy, because we're up against the wall, we're going to have to dump a significant amount of money to get through, or dump a significant amount of money to repair things that are going to be addressed within the next 12 months if everybody's on the same page. And that's what that electrical issue is, a huge one, but then just the cost. So I'm gonna buzz through a couple items, but I want to give it back to Brian first to go through anything else that he has as far as presentation, if you guys have questions for him, and then I can go through a little bit more, but I don't want to go over the floor.
Like I said, we just working on some of those assumptions and high level information that we have is what we developed here. So you can kind of skim through, you can see a brief list of some of our projects here over the last few years. And then getting into the quote information, obviously it always comes down to budgetary dollars and those types of things. So basically what we did is we priced out two separate layouts. One of a fourplex that is more traditional to what you see when communities or schools are building new fields, more ideal for hosting tournaments for revenue and those types of things, which oftentimes comes into play when you're looking at the benefits of youth sports. It's not only keeping your kids here, but how are you bringing people into your community? And we are seeing just an explosion of facilities like this across the region, across the country, because one, with COVID, people are wanting to be outside more and more, but two, people are always going to invest in their children, and they are bypassing non-turf field complexes to go to turf field complexes for the very reason that they don't want to be rained out. So they don't want to drive 3 hours to go play in the tournament, and then it rains, and then they stay the night, and then it rains, and then they don't even get to play. The beautiful thing about turf is not only the minimal maintenance, but you're playing almost immediately after the rain stops. So the benefits down the road or of being able to host tournaments, I think it can be just as important as keeping your kids here and the sense of pride that they have in their own facilities. But so that's one of the reasons we looked at the sportplex with some of Sid's recommendation too, or what he would like to see those fields being together. Cost effectiveness, we've gone through a few iterations of even the sportplex of really trying to get to a price point that would be more manageable for the city and the community to handle. So there's a few things in there that like putting the bullpens and the batting cages in the middle of the fourplex instead of on each field, reducing some of the need for sidewalks and those types of things to be able to potentially come in and done later if need be. But right off the bat, this develops a first class complex we feel like the community would be extremely proud of, and at a price point that's very, very competitive, and especially for what you guys would be doing. So that's kind of that first fourplex. The biggest difference is just how big the fields are, and that's where you're basically just looking at more turf, more fences, more rocks, more everything. So you go up the cost as the fields get bigger. And then you can kind of see some renderings that our architects threw together of what it would kind of look like from some different viewpoints. The other one, if you go to the spread configuration, that is is leaving majors as it pretty much basically as it is, turfing it, and then building 3 fields out in a similar fashion to the other one, a little bit smaller on that field, field 3, but shows a little bit of flexibility. That's a little bit less expensive because you're not moving major fields as well. You're basically utilizing 3 fields, and then you're retrofitting majors for the most part. So our job and our goal was to help put these ideas into actually what is a constructible amount, how could it be done, and how could it be laid out, and then present it that way. So you can kind of see additional information there for those layouts. So that's what I have. Questions for me? Yeah.
On the spread configuration, I see that you note that the concession and restroom buildings and parking lots shown are not included in the pricing estimate. Are they included in the fourplex?
So we do not have them in the fourplex information at all. It's not in the renderings. The renderings here we did very first were the first approach that we were approached to do. And so the renderings at that time included, all right, let's look to have the concession stand, let's look to have all the parking around it, all those things, to get the price down kind of under the area that I think Scott and Justin felt like would be something that would actually be doable. those will removed out of the price estimate, knowing that you guys could come back in and do those at a different time if need be. I think ballpark, just for cost estimating your concession stand, it would be about in the $200,000 range, depending on what you put in it. But at least that's what we had in it, and that's why we took that out. The gravel, we had a gravel parking lot and with some gravel walkways. I think that was around the $60,000 range, if you will. And again, so those are just different elements that are more, I think, options, but can also be achieved elsewhere. Now, the other thing that I will mention that Mammoth takes pride in is obviously keeping money local and utilizing local trades and utilizing people that have an interest in supporting projects like this. So we would outline all the areas that if you guys have somebody, say with dump trucks that would want to come in and help load rock and bring rock in, and you're helping reduce that cost. If you have people that want to help with excavation, then you can help reduce some of the costs on those things. And we're utilizing local people. There's some local trades that we will sub out and we can let them help with. Concrete is typically one of them. Fencing is typically one of them. And so we work really, really closely with the city and those trades to keep as much money here as we possibly can. But then also a lot of times we see people donate those services. And I say, hey, I can't give you money for it, but I sure would, our kids or our grandchildren are going to benefit from this. I'd love to donate, or sell you rock at cost, or I'd love to haul up your spoils at cost. And so anything along those lines basically just starts taking away from that bottom line and lowers the cost. So we work really closely with whoever we need to and identifying those areas if it can be helpful to the city.
What age groups are you talking about?
That's really up to
This applies to,
You'll be playing boys
so,
12 and under, and
Okay.
girls 18 and under will be able to play on this facility.
girls cap out at around the 200 field, so we'll cover them all the way through. And the boys, we actually have discussed with the high school.
So
That's because of the space requirement and the fact that we have on average, once we clear 12, we've had on average between 3 and 5. So for the 13 to 15 age group. All the other ones stay populated. For boys, once it hits 13, it's like they decide they're going pro, or they make a team, down here. So that's what we've discussed with the school, being able to use the school fields for that age group so that we didn't have to.
What, for high school?
No, for the Babe Ruth age, the 13 to 15 and the summer legion program. If right now, the school district doesn't allow the teams to practice in the summer, they can play games up there if they don't allow practice.
Does that field have turf?
Yes.
So what they did was I worked a deal out with Jimmy and Matt that if we got this project through and lost the bigger Legion field, that we could, the Babe Ruth, and if we had a Legion, you could practice and play up at the school on the turf.
Would there be a cost associated with that?
I'm sure it'd be just like it is now, like when the little guys, when we rented that field up there. It was mainly getting around the practice limitation and then let us use that. But they were on board, definitely, if they could help out, get this done, then they definitely would let us use that a little bit for the older boys, because there wouldn't be that many games during the week.
Well, and it's only fair because for a quarter of a century, they've used the Legion field and used the Jewett Silver field for high school. They charge them $150 a year.
Well, and I think as far as that goes, without delving too deep into that topic, that's that deal, kind of like when you and I were talking. You gotta make sure you're careful where you crack the door. Because once that door's cracked, everybody's foot's sticking through. And I think that's why they waited, and this is where they said, yeah, this one we can make a specific agreement. Just this age group, just for this reason.
We can make an exception.
Yeah, because what they don't want is they don't want, it to generate 5 private games of people who are renting all week long and hosting practices and whatever. They want us to have our local league and then host games for special.
They don't want to set a precedent there.
So with a lot of this, the big thing that took us around to how we've gotten to these end games is number one, we had needs in Paola. Soccer and Paola, we've always found a place, but it's never had a place. We have the fairgrounds right now, but I can tell you, I'm on the fair board, and I get to listen to this every single meeting. Everybody on the board is looking at that as a temporary arrangement. They're okay with the weekends, but they don't like leaving the gates unlocked during the weeknight because they pick up everything else that comes through the gates and messes with all the fair equipment. We've had, our numbers have went up on the stuff in Jackwood or stolen, whatever. And so it's been made pretty clear that we need to come up with something more permanent for soccer from the fair board standpoint. So our hope is when we do this, we no longer are going to be sitting in the blood draft. And I say that because right now we have 2 fields that we count on every year, and we lose for half the year every year right at the bottom of the Wallace Park here. And because of the way the real estate lays out and the field configuration, we actually, even though you know it's going to be a sunk cost, have to invest in those fields or we're playing on mud. With this plan, because we're moving the fields to the high ground and our playability goes up with the turf, that area where the carnival goes would be grassed and become flag football and soccer.
Along with the rock state.
Along with Rock Stadium. Both of those would become 100% grass. It would house a permanent location with lights. That's the only thing soccer hasn't ever had, is lights, which has made it to where we require double, if not triple, the field space because everybody has to be done by 6:15. Or it's dark. Now, when we set up that complex the way it was when it was a football stadium, take the fences out and put the grids into the soccer fields, we're gonna have soccer fields with lights. We're gonna have the soccer fields right next door. We don't have lights for overflow. And with the layout that we're doing, depending on what is done on the baseball field complex, several of these turf fields are going to be measured and marked to where they can easily be used for soccer fields, for flag football fields, etc. So we're not just addressing baseball, softball here. We're looking whole picture at soccer. We're looking at flag football, because that's the other thing. If any of you have younger kids that you go to watch the flag football by the second game of the year, everybody's sitting in the swamp. We now have options. I mean, whether it be that not only do we have places that are appropriate and grass thick, but we also have backup plans with the turf, or even finally, like he said, we don't wear the turf out by using it. So absolutely, we're going to take advantage anytime that can come into play. And it gives us functionality year round. And the things that does that nobody seems to account for in the day-to-day discussions is it keeps our costs in. Because I can tell you, when we go mark the field on a Sunday and then it's trashed and we have to cancel the rest of the games that day, or whenever it rains and this happens and that happens, these are things that we're able to keep our costs down because we know what we're doing. We know we got, if this is questionable, we're going here. Here's what we're doing. The other thing that we looked at in the big picture is, like we talked with Jay, one of our biggest blind areas in Paola is that south end of town. It didn't used to be, but it is. Like if you drive through Paola, where you're gonna find empty business buildings and where you're gonna just find the people hanging out doing things they shouldn't. It seems to really map that area. I know because I'm the one who goes down and picks up a lot of stuff in the evenings and you find a lot of that stuff. But with that, it's gonna clean that up, which then also changes the dynamic of what your pool is. Right now, you've got a pool that we call Worlds of Fun with an auto part salvage yard in the background. Whereas you're addressing Wallace Park as a whole, and our whole park package is gonna be something that when you pull through, we're not having people say, wow, why does ours look like this? And also Lonnie's looks better, Parker's looks better. And this isn't, like, this is actual. I think you mentioned it to me a little bit, that you had encountered, we get it every year. The places that are half our size, that have so much nicer stuff. And I'm not compared to our neighbors, we gotta have the nicest, but it is hard to digest with our community that we have what we have. And with that said, the other thing that we looked at and why we're at, we looked at the amount of space that we're using for the amount of participants that we're using. Right now, Big Russell took the greatest chunk of real estate and it had the smallest number of participants. So we looked at that being the prime real estate, the high ground, and we figured, how can we get everything else up here in the high ground and still accommodate that age group plus all the others? And that's why we came to what we did with the school, just based on the sole fact that it's hard to justify how much money we were spending annually on that big field. Some years only have one team. So that's why the shift is, we still absolutely intend on, now the city has ultimate control of that. There's never any thought of removing any of the legacy names. So as far as the stuff that's there, Julie Silver, Lou Bear, Russell, those items, we never intend, even if the field moves, that would fall. Like we intend that would fall. We're not trying to step on history or disrespect anything there. But the last thing that we're running up against is, and this is where I get antsy, because I'm the guy who goes out and beats the streets to beg for money. We've got my flash hazard down there, I guarantee it. I'm not an electrical guy, but I can tell you I've been buzzed flipping the breaker on and off to the point where we have people using it on Russell Field to turn the lights on. Because when you turn it on after about 20 minutes, it drops to the middle, wiggles and sits there. It'll stay on, but if you kick it off, you gotta wait 30 minutes for it to kick off again. And if you touch it, you're gonna get a buzz. It's just the way it is. We didn't address it last year, number one, because we didn't have a season due to COVID. And number two, because the expectation, even going into last year from our discussions with Jay, up until we found out they weren't, was that it would be addressed when we did the renovations. The same issue that we're up against electrical there is really an electrical issue in most of the complex. I can tell you, they didn't use the things that would be done with modern technology to protect the electrical wiring. So we've got issues everywhere. The Band-Aids that we have done have gotten us through, but now that the city owns them, I would recommend, we did not spend the money to repair them because it was outside of our budget. I can just tell you, even in a good year where everything goes exactly as I would hope, I'm not coming up with the money to repair it and replace some of it. The number two issue that we're up against, which is a giant part of our budget here in every scenario, is the lights. I think it's to the tune of almost 415, 420,000. The big difference is we're paying a pretty significant operating cost for unsafe electrical right now. And that's the thing that when we jumped, because initially when we were working with Jay and whatever, the thought process was he thought that we were going to be able to get lights donated that were hand-me-downs from the Lord. So lights weren't in the budget and we were shooting at 1.9. And that's the difference from the 1.9 to where we're at. Because Lawrence did a draw program where he wrote grants and I helped him write that grant. And he just didn't get. He got to the final four and somebody else got it. And unfortunately, I'm sure if Brian knew something, he'd let us know, but I don't know. I haven't stumbled on a single other place that had lights that had been replaced that were worthy of us even trying. The other side is the cost savings that we're gonna get. Right now, you guys can remember, I guarantee it, Jay flipping out every time he found out somebody left the lights. There's good reason because it blew his budget. Now the lights will be timers. They also have remote shut off, so Sid sees the lights are still on, checks, nobody's there, he can shut it off, saying with anybody, if we're still helping manage things, we can do the same. That's a big plus, but the lights are where we spent a good portion of budget for good reason. The other things that I want to point out, just so everybody has the full picture. The other reason that we didn't put the concession stand is it's not that we can't. And it's not that I still would hope if we come to an iteration and you guys do the things that you want, and we come back to, that the city would fund what they can on the concession stand. But as Artie will testify, when I came onto the baseball softball board 3 years ago, I discussed with the Bear Foundation putting in a concession stand. At that point, everything else was grassroots. Osawatomie had just done a concessions trailer and it cost somewhere around the tune of $80,000. We had discussed with them doing something similar or setting a permanent location. And long story short, we were in a position that year from my conversations with Jamie and Blake that we probably could have got it through, but we didn't feel like it was appropriate based off the information Jay was giving us. Because it would be really inappropriate for us to build a concession stand if we didn't have, make it complex for it. We want the concession stand to fit in the complex. But I do still, from who I've talked about, expect that I can get that portion delivered to that extent. Plus, we have CARES grants and SPARK grants that have limitations. We have time limitations on when they have to be spent, and whenever I wrote the grants, I requested the grants for capital improvements for playground, and I threw in concession stand for the sole fact that if we got in a pinch, that we could make concession stand first priority and then go to playground. But I had no intention of trying to use it because I feel like, and still stand behind it, we can get there on the concessions.
What's the amount of that?
The playground or the grants?
Grant.
The grants that I have 100% secured that expire are $23,000.
Okay, what was it for Blue Bear? I can't remember.
What was one?
They were saying roughly 80,000. They thought that they would do what they did for Osawatomie. And they bought Osawatomie that mobile concessions trailer. We weren't looking for mobile.
Well, I remember when that came up, I just couldn't help remembering that.
And that's what I touch base just often enough to keep it in everybody's head, but I try not to really dig in and get into details because where we didn't know what the field situation looked like, I don't want it to look like we were prepared and the chance of losing. But when we talk about the things that we have to lose, that's the big ones right there. Number one, we're looking at some cost on the electrical, unless we find some way that we can lay it out in a grid that we know we're gonna do, at which point, if we know we're gonna do it well.
How do I ever have any grants or anything that help with things like this?
What's that?
Is Power Light, wherever,
There,
whatever it
I
is
think
now,
there
do
may
they
be
ever
some
have,
opportunities there.
do they ever have any grants or anything?
I know that they do some funding on some projects. We were kind of working with some things in Iowa. But I would just have to kind of explore that with them and see if we could fit any of this into that.
A lot of that's if you do the energy efficient lights and stuff like that, then they give you, they'll get some money into that.
So here's the things that I get into, and I might be making improper assumptions, but it's the way that I do it. I feel like we have more fortune basically giving handouts of grants or whatever, proposing it from Paola Youth Sports than we would proposing it from municipality. Because I feel like the stigma is, if Sid went and represented the city and said, hey, Bear Foundation, we'd like to build a concession stand. I feel like the Bear Foundation might kind of look at it cross-eyed and say, that's great, but, you know, you guys have these mechanisms in place to fund it. That's where I want to make sure that we get the benefit of both sides of this. The other thing is, and this is, I mentioned it earlier, but it's the biggest thing that I want to make this horribly clear. I'm fighting burnout with my volunteers. There's got to be something to move it forward. Because it's one of those, we keep moving right at the end of the tunnel. So now, what, in my opinion, if I were to walk out and say, yeah, we accomplished it tonight, we would have to get something timeline-wise going. We would have to have a reasonable bit of pace to it. And I say this just for the standpoint of, I just watched the timeline of the county's comprehensive plan, how long that's taken, and I know what stage they're at right now. And I don't feel very good that we would be able to close that discussion and have anything on the tail end of the comprehensive plan with time to do anything with it before we would have November elections for 2 more council seats. So I get it if you as a council don't feel that way, but from my standpoint, I like the council that we have in place, and like you all have said, except for Leanne. And I say this just because I haven't spoken with you, not because you're against it. That you're all in favor of the project, that it's a timing issue or it's a funding issue. Now, the last thing that he didn't cover that I want to make sure is known. When we get to the point, if we decided tomorrow, we're going to move forward with this project. You guys voted it through and it was going. Mammoth has made it clear verbally and will put it into the contract, correct me if I'm wrong at any point, that they will carry at the exact value that we are doing the project with 0 interest. So it's not going to cost us a penny for them to carry the financing for 12 months at 0 interest. To allow us plenty of time to get the bond in place if you only want to do one bond issue in October, and put your bond on schedule with everything else. Or even if it went until December, as long as we have our ducks in a row, it's a non-issue. And so that's why, whenever we circle back on the financing end, that's why, as much as I'd love to get into this person said this and this one, like Mary Carson, when she told us one thing, in the end game, we're living free for the first 12 months. We're essentially getting that first 12 months before we even have a payment due on. So our payments are going to line up with our debts. We're not incurring any interest, but we're getting the benefit. And then the other reason I mention that is because some of the concerns are, if we get this ball field in place, I think the goal down the line is that we put infrastructure in personnel wise to help manage when we have tournaments and to manage when we do this. But we're not, if we were in year 1 of paying for it, I could get that we would put it off for that reason. Because in year 1 of paying for it, you look at it like it's a sunk cost, that we have the tournaments that are occurring and we're paying for the field of it. But in the case that we're talking about, you have the first year as a no overhead trial on how it goes, what we need, etc. You're not going to get a no overhead trial in another situation. Because if we have a bond issue next year, the money's out. It just, in that regard, I feel like it's a good situation.
A little clarifying point on our end on that, I think when the first conversation was letting it get to the first bond money coming in, not 12 months, no interest. So basically, if the project was green lighted to begin in March, then we would go ahead and start the project, and that payment wouldn't be due until the money was received from the first bond, which I think was November or something along those lines.
Yeah, the first bond could be, it depends on when you do the issuance, right? I mean, if you did it in November, you did it in December, you did it in February of the next year. But yeah, I understand.
So that was more the thought of, we were willing to kind of help float this to make that happen. Not a 12-month
Yeah.
No, so I just want to make sure we clear on that.
Where-
For you guys to have all this.
Where the 12 months came in the first place, he said it, as long as the bond issue was within the 12 months when it became up, that they've done. So I didn't arbitrarily make it 12 months to make it sound sexy like the rest of the furniture on. But yes, that's what we're looking at, is that we have that ability to get there. The other thing that we have the ability, I'm gonna be honest, from my standpoint, I don't want to, and I'm comfortable putting this off without making clear steps forward, moving forward. So at the point, if we're moving forward, we'll figure out what we need to do if our season starts a month late. Or if our season ends up where I have to go scrounge up money to lease school fields for portions because I'm waiting on construction or this and that. But so that we're all on the same page. To a person, we're sitting in a position where if we don't get some ground lease, the intent is that the city will be in charge of something.
If I could just summarize just a little bit, just real quick. I think what we tried to do was we tried to get something that the most kids and the most outdoor activities could benefit from. If we do the fourplex and we do the turf and we make it that 210 or 220 size field, as Justin said, soccer gets something, girls softball gets something, baseball gets something, flag football can play up there, everybody that does something at Walls Park would get something out of that. Then we would also help those, practice of the fields, leaving those dirt fields, and everybody could practice down there. It eliminates a lot of hassle. It makes it easier for parents to let their kids do dance and still play softball. If they want to play soccer in the city or even baseball in the city, if they know they're only playing Mondays or Tuesdays, it's easy for everybody to make a schedule. They know what nights they're playing. And if we can bring tournaments in here, the amount of revenue that the high school sees, my passion for this, when I got Justin on board to help with this, was if you had a tournament down there every weekend, boys or girls, you're keeping your kids here, you're bringing the city to you instead of you going to the city. And hopefully the revenue generated could almost make a self-run rec program in itself without the city having to spend a lot of money, other than maybe paying somebody to serve the cats down. But the money could be used to, every kid could always play for $50, $30, which we're having a hard time keeping it at that. But that was my vision at the end of the day. Everybody would have something down there, it'd be nice, and you could make yourself run rec program without a lot of city dollars tied to it. And then you'd be one step closer to that rec commission, which I think 8 years from now is where everybody's headed for. But the city would have something, the school would have something. It would almost generate its own revenue to pay for itself. I really believe you could do that with everywhere I've been, the tournaments I've been,
And that's not even factoring in your sales tax.
No. The other advantage with the current last thing real quick is when I've done it myself and played, you go somewhere that's dirt and you get 3 inches of rain over the night, you show up, they cancel, you're gone. If you show up and it's turf, hey, we're waiting for the rain to stop. So you're at McDonald's, you're at Walmart, you're doing whatever, because you don't know when you're gonna play. So you're not even gonna leave and go back to the lake, you're just there. So all the businesses in town, I would think it would help everybody.
And so they have the Cancer Foundation tournament involved. I know our businesses in town certainly benefit from that, because a few of them start saying, tell us when that is, because they ran out of food for a couple of years.
So you have that almost every week.
They had nothing left.
Do you have any numbers to support that, or any numbers, because I know basic field maintenance is included in this contract for the warranty period. I guess my concern is more management of the costs moving forward, the cost of regular maintenance for the parking lots and the concession stands and things like that going forward yearly. Do you have any idea of how much a tournament brings in and how much the regular
I talked about are probably on the conservative side to an extent, but it's a good number to use as a baseline because again, conservative is good. As far as the concession stand maintenance, et cetera, the things that we're looking at is we spent a decent chunk on the guts of the concession stand in the last 2 years. So we've got new ice machines, several new machines inside. The other thing is, with the mutual step, I can tell you I'm not going to. This year is the hiccup that I couldn't have predicted. And it's the one couple that with the issues that we put off hoping for the renovation. I can't get the money from the businesses because they're all paying the money. But in a year or two, when everybody's rebounding, I have no doubt because our sponsorship package was so well received at 250, that if we're able to eliminate just the field maintenance from our budget, I can keep with what I do with the team names, the sponsorship stuff. I can keep the cost of the kids to $50 or under. And I can put us in a situation where we're able to cover the travel, et cetera, in situations where an all-star team is made or an all-star team wins or whatever. And to cover a lot of your maintenance items like that as far as our year to year. Right now, we may maintain our parking lot as far as we go down, we pay somebody to spray them. The city usually will let them know, hey, we use a load of gravel, and Kirk has been really good about that, as far as spreading gravel from, and some of it's happened down there for a couple of years, but we get gravel. But those costs as far as the gravel movements are gonna be less than what they are now. From the standpoint of, right now, everything we have is a small sliver of gravel surrounded by a large chunk of grass. And so we're fighting the overrun and people parking all over the place and the dangers that come with that. Whereas whenever we do either of those configurations, and we have one centralized parking lot, I can tell you that's one of my, and I can't believe it took me this long to get there. That's one of my big issues. I feel like every time I back out in my truck at the baseball, and there's just no amount of lifting that can make you feel comfortable. And then when you do start to think, all right, I've done everything, we've had 2 kids run over it. And it's not a fault thing. I'd love to say somebody was in their head or this and that, but you got kids running in areas where cars are going because we don't have designated car areas. If we can create a designated parking lot, not only does it make things so much cleaner from a safety standpoint, but it also, the optics are so much better.
I don't think our maintenance with the new complex would be as much as what we have now.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We would cover the maintenance with what we do here. And even if we convert it to a rec commission, as long as it works with the city, I would continue to do that or to pass that torch to show somebody exactly what we do so that maintenance can continue.
One thing that I've been trying to find out, that I really don't know where to go to get it is, and I would do the legwork if somebody tells me where to go within the city, is how much our sales tax goes up the weekends we have tournaments at the high school. Because that, I mean, we could look at, that's a given figure, and then we could just double, because we would have the same amount of
I
fields.
don't know that, because all we get is a monthly distribution
Okay.
on that. And so, I mean, we can look at those months, but are those tied because it's a summer month and we got more people traveling? You know, what that should, but I think that's where I think there needs to be more work done on. I think there's ways that you can evaluate what that potential economic impact is. So that, and from my standpoint, all of this is being able to say that we chose the right project at the right time, and that we can defend that when everybody from the public who isn't a baseball or softball person comes at us, because they will, sure, they will, we can say, look, we've done all this, this is the reason why we made this decision. And having economic development, the economic impact of, you know, what does it look like if we have a tournament here, and we've also got one at the high school, what is that, we can estimate $1, it'll be hard to prove that, yes, that's what drives that, but we can put that together.
You can use that for some justification.
Right.
Right, well, and I know the cost of the maintenance and the upkeep of the pool is astronomical compared to what we're talking about here. But I think that's one of my concerns going forward is years ago, when the pool was designed, the thought was, okay, we've got to take so much of this money and set it aside for operation. And that's my biggest concern, because we're talking about, we've got an 8-year warranty, and I know as well as anybody that 8 years and 1 day later, we're gonna have an issue. You know, so,
What's the replacement cost?
right, to be able to look at that and say, okay, if we're gonna do something like this, we have to make sure that not only do we have enough money to take care of the pool and the operating costs and the upgrades and the improvements we want to do to the pool and streets and other park areas, not just Walton Park. We've got several parks around town that definitely need work. And I agree with Sid, I want to make sure that we don't do something that's going to alienate a large percentage of the public, so that in 15 years, when we come back and do the sales tax again for something else, they're like, you know, but I want to make sure that we've got a good handle on what the costs are and what the requirements are year to year, so we don't just jump into something and then next year we're like, oh, we didn't foresee that. Or, you know, the terms weren't as high as we thought they were, the income wasn't as great, how do we staff it, all of that. So that's part of my concern as well.
Well, and I, from a city operational standpoint, I appreciate the work that the volunteers do there. But from the city standpoint, I say we need to have some way, there needs to be some accountability there. And especially if we're gonna put in a $2.5 to $3 million project, of how that gets maintained and who's gonna be responsible for what. Because I've seen it happen in different communities where it's all good because the volunteer base is good, but people change, they move on, and then the volunteers aren't taking care of it like they're supposed to. And the city's sitting back because, hey, the volunteers are taking care of it. And it's 2 or 3 years of that downgrade before the city, somebody gets mad enough at the city that the city goes, okay, well, we better do something. And I want to make sure that the sustainability of that, we have that in place too.
We have already talked, Dennis and I have, for even next year, with the high school kids and college kids not being as available as they have in the past, is we might, out of our budget, pay somebody to maintain that down there, to be supervisor. That's somebody that maybe is with the school that would help do the school facilities and that all at the same time, that'd be there. Like we used to pay Jody to maintain
Well,
it.
but I guess from that standpoint, I would say, I think that's probably something the city should.
Okay,
And that's okay.
Because then we have, if that person isn't doing what we like, or isn't doing what we can say, hey, that's.
No, absolutely. We just wanted to make sure you knew right now, in our agreement with the school, they have certain stipulations, just like, kind of like you just mentioned, of concern, all right? Who's gonna make sure that we're following the rules? Who's gonna make sure that gums not chewed, sunflower seeds aren't done, and who's gonna be the liaison? And so that's what he proposed, is we proposed to them, all right, we hired somebody that was already working for the school district. We said, hey, we'll pay that person
instead of
to
getting
do
something.
it, so they could funnel through the payroll, they still answer to the school, but we just funded. So that you had autonomy. Yep, if this person doesn't do it, I don't want it. The only thing that I do want to respond on that is, and it's kind of tongue in cheek, but we're on year 33 of the downhill slide. That the volunteer base keeps picking up the slack, what happens when we do. And that's what, and I say it in the most sincere way possible. I live, eat, and breathe food. When people went elsewhere, I take personal offense to on what do we need to do, how do we need to fix it to address. And now we're at the point here where I feel like we've got to stop the downhill slide. If I'm on the volunteer committee and we don't make progress here to where we say we've got a timeline, and I continue to show up and do it, then what I'm doing is I'm enabling the fact that we'll always clean the mess up. And that's the perspective, whether it's intentional or not, that's the perspective. Is that the volunteers, no matter what we throw at them, they care enough about the kids that always gonna clean up the mess and get this going, and that's why they're all up through the yard. Something's gotta spark the step. And so that's where, for me, as painful as it would be to watch a struggling year of Paola sports, it also would put the ball in the court, and right now it's a force match, which I hate the whole thought process. But it's not because I feel like that if we can't get something in the next couple of months figured out and hashed out to the point where we're taking the step and getting this done, what would give me faith that we're gonna do it in a year? We're gonna be looking down the same barrel next year. And I totally understand that we've got moving parts here that are new to the game, but I also understand that we could have the same amount of moving parts next year new to the game. And it could be the reason that we start all over next year. So that's what, for me, leaving this meeting, and if you guys don't want, you don't have to give anything to appease me. For me, to leave and say this was a success and to pass it on to the board that we got some ground. I need to hear what you guys think the reasonable timeline is to get this done. When it will be done, because the other question that's prompted all the time, which I have like plague is, what's going on with the pool? There's just no communication. So like on the baseball and softball, we eat that. Everybody thinks that that's our responsibility, but we don't own the fields. So when it comes down to it, there's a point at which I'm moving out from in front of that gun or giving an answer. And right now I have neither.
I think if we don't do this now, we're not going to do it. We can't commit other councils. We don't know who's going to be on the council from year to year. And I've never seen a project that the city does that we had this much legwork, especially coming from volunteers that meet so many needs of so many children, of so many organizations. Because anybody that's been in the sports system in Paola knows you either sell signs or you sell candy and you get up all the, like Bear Foundation, half the leagues are run by money, so Bear Foundation donates. If we don't do it, well, we got the chance it's not going to happen. And then I agree on the pool. We need to be looking at what we want to do to the pool and telling people we're opening the pool this year, if we don't open the pool this year. But here's the improvements we're gonna do when we do open the pool.
That we have a little more information. He's been in touch with, Sid has.
So,
Haven't you said?
all this is a timeline of getting to where we know that we have money at the end of this year. And that's been the timeline that I've operated on, knowing that really our money target is at the end of this year. And so the information that I have on the pool to this point is that talking with two others, we probably have up to $1.5 million worth of rehab work that we need to be thinking about. Now, some of that could be done up front, and some of it could be that, hey, we know that we're going to need to replace those filters in the next 5 to 10 years, and we're going to start putting money back. But we've got to be able to, as we're paying bonds off, we still got to be able to put enough money back to operate the pool and to save for those bigger projects on the pool side. I've talked with Splash Tackler on they had done some proposals on some enhancements. Those enhancements, I believe the cost of those, and that was 4, and that doesn't mean that we have to do 4. It's just that that's what they had talked about. Those were $750,000, but that's just to get the slides in. It's not the actual construction of that. That's just the unit itself. So we're looking at easily $3 million at the pool. And that's kind of what we talked about in December. We had $3 million at the pool. That doesn't count the probably $2.25 million that we need for operation of the pool. And then we have this ballpark. And I think that's why in my memo to council, I talked about the timeline of I feel like it's important for us to get community engagement in what we're doing with this. Because I think if we go out and we walk out of here and we're saying we're gonna do a $3 million baseball field project, we're behind the 8 ball and trying to explain why we chose that. Because honestly, from a staff perspective, we haven't had very much input in this project. Up to even.
But I think that's our fault.
Well,
We could have had as much input as we wanted in this.
Dave, I will say, the first time I had any information that we had anything going on with the golf course, other than, hey, we need to be working on this, was at the end of July, when we had a meeting with another a person that was doing a business plan. And then we asked, hey, we were told that, hey, we're working on getting information ready, getting ready. And it wasn't until the end of October that we actually had.
That one though, said to back up, in July, I asked to be on the August meeting, and you told me you guys were full, and asked if we could wait. We waited a month, and in September, when I requested it, you did not put us on the work study still. We ended in a situation in which we met with you and Randy individually. And at the end of that meeting, I can tell you the vibe of the room was that we were all on the same page moving forward.
I'm not gonna get into he said, she said.
It's not.
I'm
We're
just
all
gonna
in the
say,
same room, say what happened.
I'm just gonna say, I have been working on a different timeline than what it appears that I should have. And that's on me.
Well, I don't think we would get as much static as you think from the public if we did the ball fields.
Well,
Everyone in this town have said they needed to be done. Everyone knows that the two main things we were gonna do with this sales tax money was take care of the pool and take care of the parks. And they knew that the ballparks was gonna be one of the main things of it.
Right, but I think there's two different pages here, because in my conversation with Justin, correct me if I'm wrong, but it almost sounds like you were led to believe that there was a certain number that you were looking at and a certain percentage of the sales tax. When we had those initial meetings, I was in agreement that we needed to do something. I've been to Wellington, I've been to other ball fields, I know our ball, even on Swanee, I do, I look at that and say, okay, they've got better ball fields than we. But when I was looking at doing something, I wasn't looking at a $3 million fourplex.
We weren't either.
That's not, so
We
you can
weren't,
understand.
and that was a different plan that was actually requested by.
Right, so when you look at this, okay, that we're trying to work on.
But you already had a $2.5 million project.
We did, absolutely. The
Yeah.
$3 million, that's a
Right.
$500,000 difference.
So giving that, you can understand that we're trying to look at, okay, we know we've got the pool, that's a very known cost. The ball field operation is not. We know what that's gonna cost. We've also talked about issues with the dam at the lake that we've got to address, that we don't know what that's gonna cost. And that's gonna have to fall under parks, because I don't know that we have any other,
We don't have any other good.
And
we may be able to
When
get
you
grants
repeat
for
my
some of that.
question, that's what we battle as far as, no matter what. Like when we met in October, and we went through everything, Scott asked a very pointed question of, what number do you envision on this? What are you thinking you're shooting for? So, or do you think this is realistic? Because that's what we're up against. Like you said, we're working with old numbers, and then those numbers gravitate, and as we discuss it with people on the level, because I've talked to everybody individually except for Leah. And they're all different conversations, but the problem is that they don't match. And let me back up a step, because I do feel like that this is taking a turn like it's one side or the other. And it's not. So I want to take a step back and make it very clear. I do feel like we're all in this. What I want to make sure of is when we discussed it in October and when we discussed it at that meeting, hey, this is coming, I'd like to get on the meeting, whatever, it was, we needed to start getting our ducks in a row and putting the target is and getting the plan to do what we can do for you. Because just like us, you guys should in answer to that. So our thought is, we deal with the logistics of this stuff every day at our fields when we go to other places and with the school budget, I get to see all those, Scott gets to see all those. So we knew what we were working with, and it was figure out our target, see what the best product we could put forward. You guys told us right now, because this is a question that I also posed to Lee, and it's a tough question, but what is the that you would feel comfortable with spending on the ballpark? Because again, don't get me wrong, would I love to put in the fourplex that gives us revenue options and gives us better playability, et cetera? Absolutely. But if you came and you guys told me right now, we've got these 5 variables, so the most that I could feel 100% comfortable cutting loose on the walls for sports complex would be 750,000 or 1.2 million, or whatever it is. Yeah,
Just do 2 fields, you know, like.
if we knew what our target was, then the first thing we're gonna do is to say, all right, here's our recommendations on the electrical. Can we fix the electrical and upgrade a field all at one cost so that we're not wasting the cost to fix it? But that's the problem, and that's where, and I'll take a good portion of the blame on this one, because I felt so good when we left the October meeting, and that was based off my vibe of the meeting, Scott and I talking. That when I said, all right, I'll get in touch with Sid in a couple weeks, both Brian and Scott said, get the guy a little room to breathe. He's on board too, but he's putting his own touch on this. Give him a couple of weeks at least. Don't contact him in 2 weeks. So I acted. And I'll be completely honest, that's when in December, and Sid and Randy can testify, whether it was the intent or not, I was completely not off guard. That it was not a, hey, we're pushing the time. And again, I'll take some blame on that I read the room wrong in October and came in with expectations. But moving forward, myself and Sid and whoever else is working on this, it has to be to where I can take what is said by Lee and Sid and repeat it with faith and vice versa. That if I say I'm gonna answer the bell, and I'm gonna go get you $100 grand to cover the cost of the concession stand or playground or whatever, that you can walk away knowing that that's gonna get taken care of, and vice versa. If you say, hey, here's what we're doing. But the things that did catch me off guard to say that I'm not a complete idiot for how I felt in October is a large part of the discussion was the timeline that we would have to meet and when the decision had to be made for it to be done by April. And at that point, I feel like if that was a definite no, that should have been discussed.
I would like to interject though, because when we walked out of October, I had asked for, because I thought I had somebody actually talk to me about the cloverleaf design. And so I thought it was worth bringing that up to throw that out there. We got pricing on that mid-November, and that's when that pricing was substantially higher than even what we've got in here. That one was like 3.5 per inch. And that's when I went back to council and talked to him and said, hey, this is even higher than what we were anticipating. This is the realm. And then that time I'd also been able to get more definite numbers on the pool stuff. And that's where I started being like, okay, well, we got 3 million at the pool, we got 2.5 or 2.2 on the operations. And so I came to council at their work session in December and said, hey, this is kind of what we've got going on and everything. And that's, council told me, say, yeah, we probably need to get a plan. And I think, I perfectly understand that we haven't given you a number to hit, but I don't think we know what that number is. And that's because we need to work through that. We need to, I personally believe that we need to do some community engagement on that end to help us work through that. Now, what I have proposed to do is work with our comprehensive plan process, but front load that if we can. If they can't meet that need, we do it either on our own or do it separately somehow so that we can meet a timeline that we are talking about And we have a spending plan discussion, we're talking about our spending plan for this sales tax over the summer, and by early fall, we could say yea or nay on a project. And move
So
forward.
my question would be, when you talk about community feedback, because this is also something else. Like when I talked to Lee a little bit, I did not want to, nor do I want to, get you hammered or inundated with calls and be counterproductive. But are you wanting to get a survey that represents 1,000 random people in the community? Are you wanting to get feedback from each person's area to let them know where they stand? Because the thing that I will tell you is, we mobilized them to get it going, and I have no doubt that if I send a text out tomorrow, I can have a good chunk of each of these areas contacted. And if that helps, I would do it. I just don't want it to be counterproductive by, hey, everybody go call your councilman and drive them nuts.
And what I foresee in that, I would like to visit in our comprehensive plan, I'd like to visit with them if they're gonna do that, because they do that kind of stuff all the time. But I think if we do it on our own, it's some sort of a combination of potentially a survey and then some sort of kind of public meeting, and the day of COVID, how we do that, how we facilitate that may be different. But Justin, if you get your group and your group responds to that survey and they do that, that's what we can go back and say, look, we did a survey. The survey says
Well, help
that
me
there's
help you
community support.
timeline.
What?
What do you?
Help me help you timeline. Like, how soon can you get that going? Because I can mobilize as soon as you lose. Like, literally, we have with our infrastructure, not kidding, I can have 1,000 people contact me. So tell me so that we can help you best.
Well,
What's our timeline right now?
that
You're-
timeline is looking, I think I had that proposed, I think, like a March and April timeline to do some community engagement.
Why could we not do it sooner?
Well, we can, but that means we are doing that, and we're not potentially tapping into the professionals that do that we might hire to do our company stuff.
Maybe it's information we get and use and then share with them after we.
It can be, but I think, I guess from my comfort level, I would prefer to have that consultant on board and at least have that initial conversation. Hey, if we do this, can you help us with this to meet this timeline? Yes or no? And if they can't, then we know that, okay, we're gonna meet that timeline, but at least we try to get them to help us on it, because I think you gotta be careful with the questions you ask, because you don't want somebody being misled that the idea that, oh, well, yeah, I'm good with the ball field, but then they realize we can't afford, we're not gonna be able to do something in their neighborhood park. Or, yeah, I'm all for the pool, but then we skimped out on the ball fields.
Do you think we could come up with the questions, though, Sid, between you and staff? And one thing, whoever lives in town, whoever we hire is not going to be from Paola.
No, but they would know how, they
They would know the profession.
they are versed in how you set up questions. I mean, like I said, I think that's something that we can do. We're not gonna be as proficient at it as somebody.
Well, I think I can be part of it.
A question I would have, and it's probably a big one, is to get the questions that are gonna give us the answer we want, we still have to have a general idea of what our target is. Like, even if we're saying between 1 million and 2 or 1 million and 3, because if we ask the questions, hey, what would your comfort level be on spending this much? You're gonna have to portray, like in all these that you say, it would be, if it were for this, or if it were for this, or if it's between this and this. And so it scares me a little bit, because I feel like that's the thing we need to do. And I say we, understand, at any point that you feel like you want to do something, I'm not trying to step on your toes to do work for you. The reason I say we is because I'm absolutely ready to help on anything that we can help.
I have something I like. I don't want to bring it up, but I'm going to bring it up. The turf. When the football field got put, they put the turf on there. There was a lot of people in Paola that were very unhappy with that. And they thought they should have just had grass, and they didn't understand why they needed turf. And I did a little research today. Now this is football, but it's turf, and there's 37 NFL teams. 17 of them play on grass, 15 play on turf. And the NFL is they're working on wanting them to go to grass. Because they say that, the hardness of the field has to be determined, and I don't know, there's a lot of stuff. And, I know when the football field went in, like I said, there was a lot of grumbling. Maybe not with people that had kids, but older people, taxpayers. And I need more information for justification. I personally don't have a problem with grass.
Sure.
Well, the
I can
justification that,
I can speak directly to that
Go
as
ahead.
far as, NFL and those types of things. So, first of all, we started as a natural grass company, so just kind of with that. The biggest difference between the NFL and what you're referring to is there is nothing safer or better than a grass playing surface for safety. The problem is you have to have a crew of 15 full-time people like the Chiefs, and even the Chiefs have to bring in sod twice a year from South Florida, and they have a heating mechanism underneath there to have a safe field that is comparable to turf. So we actually have research, and I can share with you, that turf fields at the high school and collegiate level are safer than grass because of, you don't have the divots, you don't have a number of the other issues that actually come into play because you can't keep the field as pristine as you would need to. The other argument, the other thing against that is Bill Belichick, for the Patriots, who I think everyone would agree is the most anal coach of all coaches. They have a 26-member team of physicians, doctors, trainers, scientists, and they went through and studied the safest surface for their athletes, especially in weather. And they went with field turf. In fact, the same field we put down at Pittsburgh State and at Pittsburgh High School, because that is the most consistent and guaranteed playing surface. So a lot of the safety information that you'll hear on turf is from comparing it to an NFL type stadium, not what your current high school field is really going to look like for your baseball.
How many high schools have turf around here?
we were the last one in the league to get it.
Here, just to help, if you go to the page.
And I think, you guys have talked about this before.
But the other big.
What the school district did, they went for a cost per maintenance versus hours of use, and the turf was significantly cheaper maintenance wise when you look how many hours it can be used versus.
And that's the big thing, what we're, in the situation of the football field is high school. It's usually a lot, but not the way we're talking about here. We get a rain, and we push the play after it rains. We kill the grass in the outfield, and we trash the infield, and then we spend weeks to recover. That's the difference. Now, don't get me wrong. If it was determined, we absolutely would natural surface, whatever, the things that are different, and this is why we gravitated towards the turf. We have 2 seasons in a row that we have less than 9 days because it rained every third day. So we just didn't get a play. I mean, we got 3 months of May and June, but the other thing is we lose marketability. We're not going to miss to have the ability to host tournaments on the field without a lot more maintenance, because we're going to have to be replacing the natural surfaces and repairing them. And when I say turf, it's not that we have to have turf, that's just the icing on the cake to feed the bull. I mean, it's, everything else is Who's what?
Who scheduled all of this, you're talking about games and all that?
Right now, we do. But what we, who scheduled all the games for you?
Yeah, I mean,
We do.
they all volunteer.
It's all volunteer, and that's what I was saying, we're running into full time. We've been piecing all this together and getting everything together so that we can join with the city and put this around to the city like everywhere else around us.
Hey, Justin, can I answer the safety part for the church?
Yep.
As far as, you use the example of football, baseball is significantly more safer to play on turf than it is on. Just because of the maintenance that it takes in the grass, literally gets the players to bad off and all that kind of stuff. The last few years, the high school played at the Legion Field. It was getting rough because we didn't have the people taking care of it, and it's definitely safer to play on turf baseball, softball, hands down.
And that's probably my biggest thought. So we've discussed everything else, but the reason that I got into this, and I told Scott straight out of the gates, it's the reason that I wanted to do things the way we were approaching it. Right now, our fields go average to extremely subpar based off of the volunteer pool. This is something that we can put in that ensures the dip doesn't occur.
That what now?
That the dip doesn't occur. If the we've got everything. Number one, we're gonna have more volunteers because it's easier to get people involved when they're doing less maintenance work and backbreaking stuff. But the other thing is, if we get this complex and the city decided tomorrow, hey, we're ready, it goes to a vote, pass for rec commission. The stuff that you usually spend the first 2 years of the rec commission, totally beaten into the ground, or your facilities getting everything up to date. This puts it in a position to where if that's the thing, which is, I feel.
They did a survey on that, and everybody wants a recognition, 76% of the.
Well, no, so back up, because that actually went, it was 90%, there was no mill. It was like 76% if you have a 1 or 2 mill. And again, I'm not even saying that we have to do it right away. What I'm saying is, we got everything under one hood, so we finally looked like an organized county seat instead of, you go to so-and-so's mailbox and drop the registration and hope that they get it. Number two, we've got it set up to where the transition could be smooth, should be smooth if it takes place, and if it's not, that the synergy between the city and the volunteers works more fluidly. Right now, and I'm not saying this to be crappy, but the synergy between the city and the volunteers is the volunteers request the city to mow, and the city shows up once every 2 weeks or so. So we pay people to mow and pay for all the stuff on the fields and whatever. And that works as long as the eternal spring of donating businesses stays high. This year, that's our first real test. It's not. I don't even have a stomach to walk in front of it.
What can we do? You were asking about the maintenance. What can we do? What can I do to help you guys with the comfort level of the maintenance? Your concern is valid, I know just from experience how much revenue it generates. I don't have a figure, but I'll do whatever I can to get you what you need to make you feel better about. Like Fort Scott, I go to a lot of those towns and say, okay, what have you guys done? What's it cost us? First, I can do, if that's what you need, you tell me what you need, and we'll try to find it.
Right, and I think that's the problem, and I think maybe you guys can do it, but I think that's the problem. I'm having trouble putting up with a number and saying, okay, I'm comfortable, sure with this, because I'm looking at it saying, okay, we're not gonna get any of this money. So basically, we started talking about this. So that we can,
Where the water
we can
comes
put
down.
this much money this year, to get us through to the next year. Sure, and we were looking at, the main thing we were doing was trying to get all the infrastructure. Right, you know, we were setting out the ice, stuff and stuff like that, in terms of the lines and the
That's the same
infrastructure.
thing now.
If you give me the question that you want, I can reach out to my contacts and Brian said you could tell, you give me the information you want and I'll go get what I can from Fort Scott.
I just say.
Topeka, you know, use what we got with the ice, I can do whatever you need, to make you feel better about that. I was really hoping I would find, somebody would say, oh, you can call this person. Speak up, but I didn't realize that's not really. Easier said than done. This is our option. Sure, I get it. You need my email, you can get it from me, or I can get it from you right now. It's Scott, and it's Scott, includes G-O-L, U-E,
When you come down here, this is.
whatever you need, we'll get it for you. I mean, we're just to the point where each year our volunteer cycle turns over. It gets smaller and smaller. 4 years ago, Rusty Durkin and I were down to pretty much three. And we pretty much worked up. And we came to the city with, I think it was you and RDSJ. And we were ready to say, hey, we're ready to put this and figure out that way. And Jay said, if you can get the leader to turn over.
Well, not just this.
I'm not gonna go get money for somebody else's house. But I'll do it, you know, and when I left that meeting the next day, we went out and sat in his living room and said, you're the younger generation, you need to get your buddies and help us. And I think that's what got him on board. That pool is smaller than it was. You left, you know, you were part of it, you left and then you came. That would leave this time. It used to, I think that's a day when you were doing basketball.
Most of the improvements in the baseball side was done by 5 families. Was under the Legion management.
Well, I know I was home to do a lot. Like I said, yes, on the big rock, yes, we have.
Some of that information, like the LED, life saving, energy savings, like, so.
You know,
I gotta have that because it's not bigger than like, they're not today.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's one of the things like. The rest of it.
It actually
I'm just ready to go home, so we're done.
Your dad's gonna start,
No. It's gonna be dancing with already up on the bed. Listen, Justin. Yes. Justin, we're deteriorating. I've talked with Sid, number one, we know we've got an issue with the lighting down there. It has to be addressed. I mean, that's no matter what happens, that's a city liability issue. Let's get that evaluated and see where we're at. Let's get together, Randy and him will get you some basic questions and somehow we will get some answers back.
You want us, oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, do you want to be a part of those? Put your 2 or 3 together, send them to Sid.
Do you want us to get the bid or whatever for the electrical?
No, Sid will do that.
Okay,
Well, I'll probably need to coordinate with somebody to go down there. But
I can help you because that's what I do for a living, so.
Yeah, okay, all right. And then let's talk about these fields, we'll get some cost and see if there's something we can do. Let's get that electrical going and then see if we can get something on this design plan, and if we can only do part of it, and then we need to do the other part of it, and we've got to figure out the financing on this too. And I know you generosity, that was very generous, your offer, and that will be taken back. We have to evaluate this too.
Oh, absolutely. No, I've been in a lot of
So-
these meetings, this is part of it, and it's kind of part of the course, so we're here just to be a partner with the city to help where needed. So no apology needed on that.
Well, and thank you for coming tonight.
Absolutely.
You've been very helpful and answered many questions. Thank you.
And I was gonna say, I did forward him some safety slides, just to answer your question, that's third party from, that talked about instances with on turf for college athletes and high school athletes compared to natural grass. So that way he can distribute just to talk to that specific question.
And I know how many Atlanta events and places all over the United States. And it's always on turf.
Yeah.
Florida, North Carolina, yeah, all over.
It is the biggest, the largest, fastest growing trend is baseball.
Yeah. So anyway, I understand what you're saying there. But
Well,
anyway,
I will,
we will get together on that.
yeah. I don't want to overstep my bounds, so
Okay.
I also have 6 children at home.
And obviously, we have. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you
I was
guys.
gonna do it remotely, but we haven't had internet. all day.
Yeah, that's what I found out, but happy to help in any way. It's one of the good things about being a local company is we're able to be here.
And I appreciate the idea that you will work with local people.
Yeah.
That- We always have a thing in our bid, things that we do, and we always award points for contractors that use the local help. We do appreciate that. Thank you.
Extremely, so thank you guys for your time.
Do we have a restroom right built in this?
I almost ready to talk about food trucks. I said, I'd almost ready to talk about food trucks. Story of my life. And he was very. Oh.
Are you gonna donate your?
So there.
We don't have to.
Well, thanks for coming tonight.
I would jump here.
I got to keep it
We're just saying.
They had a chance to vote. They did have a chance to vote.
Okay.
Well, that was.
Are we ready?
Justin, thank you for coming.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, guys.
Justin.
Thanks,
Hopefully we move forward a little.
I think we're gaining ground.
Well, we're getting there. We'll get there. One way or another.
I think item 2 is food truck, right?
Oh, my goodness.
You really want us to go, don't you?
I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong paper.
You're last on us old people. Didn't hear what you said. Oh, dear. I didn't need.
You're
I
saying,
said, I think the second item.
you know, this trench is in that place here, you do that.
I know.
I just told Sid, I don't know anything yet, but, so I was asking him when we choose the firm that's doing our comprehensive plan, then we'll know if we're gonna be doing the community engagement, if they're gonna do it. So we should know pretty quick if it's gonna be our responsibility or theirs.
Right, because they're evaluating those.
Right.
stuff.
So I think that's gonna be an important piece, at least for me. I'll feel better about saying, we got your feedback, because I don't like not having feedback.
The only thing is, the comprehensive plan would need to be done in a short time period. Otherwise, it doesn't need to fall while we're still.
Well, when I was looking at this, I don't know if you
I think what my thought is that we kind of have already set the stage for these firms to know that, hey, we want to talk about parks. And we could basically say, go to those firms and say, hey, we need to really get some engagement with them. We need to get it fast on the front end of this for this reason.
Okay.
Can you meet this timeline for us and do that? If it's a yes, then it's like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Let's just do it that way. If it's no, then that's where I think Randy and I come back and then we say, Stephanie, here, you need to get a survey ready for us.
That's right.
Have you appropriated so much money for your comprehensive plan?
We don't have any money appropriated in the budget because we kind of thought we might be able to get it going in this last year.
So,
But the idea we would just, as council approves that, then that approves the spending, and we know that we may or may not have to do a budget amendment because of that. Because we may spend less money than what
how much do you have a ballpark figure?
our estimate is that we probably is the $150,000 range. And that's to potentially have the extra of parks and downtown plus the
And I just personally, I would feel better getting that community feedback. That's one of the things I think that's important, is that people feel like they had a choice.
They have an opportunity.
Right, because it's their tax dollars, and, that way we can get that and we can say, okay, we can be comfortable at this level. Because I support the project, obviously. I hope we can keep it at the park, because I think that's, like I was telling Sid, I like the idea of people having to go through town to get to them, not just having right up the highway. If it makes sense floodplain wise, which I think, I'm sure they'll probably, I know that they did it almost in Ottawa. If you've ever been over to Ottawa, it's a swamp. So,
What claim with the four major fields that they were talking about is safe? Because I've been here 30 years and it's never made it more than 3 or 4 feet into the outfield of the Legion
yeah,
field. So all the fields would be shorter than that, so there's no way we could get to it.
yeah, and I think, I like the project, I think it's great, I think it's needed, but I want to feel comfortable pulling the trigger on it after we heard from whoever wants to have input.
So how are you gonna use it? I mean, are you gonna call people, or are you gonna send out?
It'd be online every day.
what I would imagine we would probably have some sort of online, I mean, a lot of times they're just using survey monkey or something. And it would be online, but we could do an article in the paper, we could do an ad in the paper to point them to that, we can do Facebook, we can do and get everybody else a link to that to help give us a good amount of information. And, if we could get 500 people to respond, great. If we get 1,000, even better. But
They did it one time before, they did a survey for the whole community and they put it in with the water bills.
well, we could even put a notice
So
on there.
every family knew where they could go to take a survey.
Yeah.
And they got,
Then probably do that.
they probably got that 27% response, which they thought was really exceptional.
Because I'll tell you, people my age, a lot of them don't do this, they don't do the internet.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't.
But
They got money and they pay taxes.
Yeah. Well, and that's,
Some
I
of them
mean,
don't even have email.
I mean, that's something that, I'm trying to remember how we did that. We've done
Water
that.
bill.
I think we did, like, we printed off paper copies for people to do, and then we hand entered those.
But if you notify them on the water bill.
Yeah.
Then you could make.
Do you know how many people go in to pay their water bill in person, just lay a few on the counter, see if people will pick them up?
Yeah.
I mean, there's ways to
Yeah,
get
we-
people
Because
notified.
I agree with Lee. I feel better about getting some input from the public, just because we passed it and they wanted the pool, and that was a big part of it. And I agree, we need to do something, because it is bad down there.
You
But
know,
at the same time, I want to make sure that we're careful and we don't go overboard, and we do what needs to be done. I don't want to shortchange ourselves, but at the same time, I want to be careful and know that there's still going to be upkeep. As much as they talk about, oh, it's a huge moneymaker, well, it is until it's not.
Right.
And, you have the opportunity to have all these tournaments, but I've played baseball with my son, and we've gone through tournaments, and tournaments have been canceled for no reason, and, things happen. So I just want to be careful, and that's why I'm like, I understand what you're trying to do, and I appreciate all the work they did, but I don't want to take that big of a leap right now and be like, okay, we're all in, we're moving forward, and like you said, we're behind the eight ball. With public opinion and finance and everything.
You can't count on the tournament revenue.
No.
For the simple reason, when I first moved here, the Adult Softball Association was immense. I mean, there's tournaments everywhere now, there's not even an adult softball.
Right. Right, well, and I think too, there needs to be, because there's not a specific rec commission, there needs to be better coordination between that group and the city. That's more, because like you and I talked, it's like, okay, I don't want to spend 3 million on ball fields, and then, okay, here's the keys, have fun.
Yeah.
And then 3 years from now, be like, okay, well, this is torn up, and this needs to be repaired, and, have all of
Yeah,
that.
you gotta have oversight.
Yeah,
That's
Well,
what
so
I
there's,
said.
there's a lot of information.
We answer to many more people than what just these sports does. But I think we have a unique situation in Wallace Park. We have the trails. It's a nice area down there. It's quiet. And most ball fields, they just go out and shovel off the field and plant a ball field. And we have much more than that. I think there's a good a good opportunity there for the community.
And I know.
And we do need to do something, and I told Sid, I don't care what we do, their lives have to be evaluated, their lives have been bad, they've been piecemeal. At the time, the Legion owned them, it was not on the city. Now then, they are the city and it's a liability.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody gets hurt.
And that's right, then we're on the hook, and that has to be addressed, as we build ball field one, that lighting situation has to be addressed.
Well, and I'd like to see us do what we can to help them where it's safe now.
Right, yeah, we,
And then
well,
after
you
we
can't,
get the community engagement stuff, reevaluate where people's priorities are. Because the only thing that was spelled out in the vote was the pool. Everything else is pretty vague. So that's why I feel like,
I think that everybody in ball field is.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, oh, I know
Yeah.
that.
That's
I
what
think-
helps out.
Yeah, and I think they did a good job of getting the word out, so I
Yeah.
think we definitely need to do something, but I do feel better about getting more of the comprehensive plan done and figuring out what we need and getting public feedback.
I feel good partnering it with the pool project, that's the way the funding works the best.
Well, and that would be my thought is too, if we do this, we might be able to coordinate that initial pool project that we're taking care of 5 or 6 things.
Right.
And we're lumping that all together so that we're making a little more bang for our buck. And we don't have to do 2 bond issuances back to back and one, $750,000.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's a good choice.
So I feel good about the project, I just want to make sure I feel like I can back it up with feedback from other people. That they're part of the community too.
Absolutely. So you're talking about this isn't gonna be done by summer.
By this summer.
I mean, this summer, it's not.
The timeline would be March, April, we're doing some sort of engagement maybe into May, but then talking about what we're gonna do in the summer, and then, trying to get a project, whether it's design build or whatever, get that lined out for the fall, so that we're actually.
Well, they were talking, it's gonna be done in April.
I think that was the initial push, was we were really wanting to get something done now, so that we would vote on it at the meeting, and then we could start construction and be done with it. It was like,
We can't quite get that.
Yeah.
That's why I said the wheels of government turn, they just move slow.
So they've been,
But you gotta give them a little leeway because they were under the impression that it was all gonna happen that fast. Because Jay had told them it would happen that fast. And I mean, you can go to Jay and talk to him. He even told us that we needed to stay on top of it and get it going, because he had made promises to these people.
you don't think so, yeah, well, and I know if we do like the timeline instead of talking about, I know what we're down for them for April, which. But all of us will still be in here in the fall.
well, that's what I told Dave, so even if we don't do anything, we just take care of the electrical and do a little bit of help with the fuel maintenance. If we get enough information, we can still make the decision and pass everything in the fall, and then move forward with the project, and then the election doesn't happen. Because I understand where they're coming from, because we got a new city manager and a new council person, things can change, and it has been going on for a long time. We do.
Yeah, that electrical though, I don't want to spend a ton of money without, if we have to make a decision on the field, you don't want to put in a bunch of money to do something and then have to rip it out for the field. I mean, somewhere you've got to get that information coordinated.
Right.
Now, this offer, they're gonna put in new lighting. If we went with.
If we went with one of their options, they would
They put
include
in
that.
all new lighting.
Right,
And-
fencing, bleachers, the whole
Yeah,
field,
yeah.
all the lighting, dugouts, everything. Well, with the
Don't-
exception
don't we
of
have a choice though, or
parking.
Right, I think that for that
Picking
price,
and
that's
choosing.
what they would include. If we came back and said, hey, we don't wanna do bleachers, we're not gonna do any bleachers, then that cuts it a little bit.
and that's why they took out the concession stand, because Justin visited with Rob George and got a much better figure from him.
A local
And
contractor.
the Sparks and the care money would probably, along with the Blue Bear money, would build that concession stand. But if we get an idea of what we want to do before that, maybe we can take advantage of that CARES and Sparks money before it does expire. I had asked Justin to email that to Sid.
When it expires.
Well, with the wording in it, so we know what all the wording is that.
How much money is there?
$23,000.
And there's Blue Bear money parks money, see if there's a way we can utilize that if we decide on a design.
Because that's the guarantee, the bare money's not.
No, the bare money, I think is
But
there.
the CARES 23.
But we just kind of carried it over because of the situation. Okay, what time is it? Okay.
We got submarines, there's no TV, so.
That's right.
Now, that's doing all anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
Satellite and antenna, so if anything's out, I've always got some.
Well, it might actually be up.
I don't know, I text you.
Well, I don't know for sure.
It's been down since 11 o'clock last night.
Oh, really?
Because I was watching TV and it went off.
At 11
I didn't go to bed till 2 o'clock.
It shows that I have internet
Yeah, I don't go to bed
access.
till 2 or 3 in the morning.
I gotta get up.
At 2 o'clock, it was still off.
Dead and hard, that's what I'm telling you.
Oh, yeah. I think it's working.
I didn't do text.
I should have called that man that we talked to at City Hall. He says, if you have any problems, call me. I think I got his number.
I wish I had a card.
Well, I called as I told the bat phone for all ties today, and all I got was they didn't know when they would get back up, so.
Since you're assuring, then somebody brought up something. I'd like to have a copy of their contract and when it's up. And Spring Hill has 2 cable companies in. So I don't know where we can.
Okay,
I'd like to know when it's up.
water rates.
It's not that old, my home.
But
It's not that old.
it hasn't gone that much.
I might as well say.
They said leave it here, leave it all.
So, because we didn't have internet, I was able to work on the stuff, but I wasn't able to put stuff into the presentation. And the timeline. I'm fine if we want to go ahead and talk about it, then as an alternative, I could try to condense that down into a memo in the next couple, probably not by the end of this week, but sometime next week, get a memo out with kind of this information. And by then, I think you're closing out on the 8th. We have probably year-end number, because I have through November, but I don't have through the year-end, and I could include that in that memo.
What are you talking about now?
Water rates,
A water leak?
water rates,
Water rate, okay.
water rates.
I'm good with them.
You're good with
Yeah,
that?
I'm good with the memo.
Thank you, Jay.
I just got a text, my internet cable's back on.
Okay.
Hey, it's off in 30 minutes.
And actually, satellite does go off in about the first 4 hours when they fix it.
Well, there was I don't know when it was, probably 10 o'clock. I got on it, was like, and it worked for like 2 minutes. I was like all excited.
Well, it was out for a little bit at our house, New Year's Day. There they have a ball game, which was a better watching way. But Ryan almost had about time to off. I was blind about that.
It happens so often that I send our payrolls out a day early, usually to make sure that I don't get, because if it goes down on the day they have to go out,
Right.
then it makes everybody's paycheck.
I'll give you my name so you can send that out. Okay, that's going away. Council meeting items.
And I'll just go through this real quick. Patrol cars, we got 4 bids, and we'll have that recommendation for council. And as part of that, we were doing financing, and we got 3 bids for the financing,
What did
so
we buy, 3 or 4?
4 is what
What did
we,
we get this year?
what?
What did they buy?
Well, I think the recommendation will be Ford. I think that sticks with,
SUVs?
what, yeah,
SUV?
it'd be a similar, I think they're going with a different color, but it would be the Explorer model. And then financing, I think first option is probably, sounds like they've already started the better into that, so. And then we've kind of already talked about the comprehensive plan. As we're trying to set up interviews and get through all that, we're not gonna have that for Tuesday, but we would do something by and maybe a special meeting between now and the next meeting, that way we can get that moving forward. And like I was telling Lee, I think if we get to a situation, we get in there and we know that, okay, this is the company and we can start, and even during the interview process, that could be a question that we ask them, okay, hey, we know we want to do this, can you do it? And that way we can know that if we say go, we're right. And if everybody's saying, oh, there's no way we can do that, then we might get started on, and Stephanie, get started on the questions.
Don't leave that.
Yeah, I don't really leave that. Any other questions or?
Sales tax was very good.
Yep.
And boy, we got last, what's the day, Tuesday, last week, them stimulus checks. Yeah, and I'm telling you what, everybody and their brother's out spending their money. It's been crazy. There was a line of traffic going into Walmart that was going clear down the hill and out onto Hedge Lane, and I had to get in line, just right past the stoplight, to get in line, and get into Walmart.
I decided not to go to Walmart when I seen how busy it was.
I mean, it's been crazy. So we should have another couple of good months. They're spending their money.
I don't know.
And you know, I want to tell Kurt, I have had several people, and I need to call him and tell him too, in the community that commented what a great job they did getting the streets clean Christmas Day, or not Christmas Day, whenever it was, New Year's Day, Friday, New Year's Day. But anyway, they've commented on what a nice job they did. And they did, they worked all day, and they did a very good job. So, appreciate that.
I have a question.
Yes.
What is the orange cable or what's being laid on, Hospital Drive?
That is, fiber.
Is that
But don't everybody get excited.
Is that
Not going
Well,
Is that 5G?
No, it's actually fiber optic cable. So as part of the CARES money, the state they did some grants for broadband projects. And Kansas Fiber Network did a project, they were gonna take fiber to the hospital. And I talked with them and said, can you take fiber to our facilities? And so that line along hospital will actually then go down Leah over to the community center, City Hall, the library, Public Works, the police station. The only thing we did not get is the wastewater treatment plant, because it was just, it's so close to where that fiber is, but the way they have to go, it's a long bill, but they didn't have the time or the money to do that.
Is it going to the banks too?
Well,
For school buildings.
I think there's a couple of the school buildings that have got tagged on to that project. I don't know if there's, Kansas Fiber Network they primarily, I don't know if they do much of the businesses. They do hospitals, they do schools, they do government buildings, but they don't typically, I don't believe they do businesses.
The bank was telling me that they either got fiber or was getting something.
Well, I think AT&T has done some fiber, AT&T or even Sun, I don't know.
I'll bet it was their AT&T.
But I know
that they did run some fiber to the banks.
yeah. And so anyway, but my hope is that at the very least, we will have a very good fiber backbone in the city that somebody else could potentially help go off of. And that's something, I took a phone call today from a local business, frustrated with Suddenlink, and I said, he asked me if we could do anything about it. And I said, well, I thought you called because you were going to start an ISP for us. But I think that's something that we need to explore. In fact, I kind of thought we probably that needs to be touched on as part of a comprehensive plan, at least know that if there's something, it's hard for us because we don't own our utility, our electric utility, because if we did, we would have a pole infrastructure and we could easily say, start, get somebody to hang fiber for us. But there might be some creative things that we could do out there to improve that. And because I shouldn't say this too loud. I don't know that Suddenlink and the AT&Ts of the world are gonna really be concerned about what goes on.
But,
They just, and so we have to come up with a local solution to fix that.
We spend a ton of money with AT&T every year to care for it.
No,
They do that 4 times a day. I just hang up on them every time. Yeah, AT&T.
I call them 3 or 4 times a day and they hang up on me.
I hang up on them. You know, if you want AT&T, just go next door to me, then knock on the door. That's what I do, and I get service. I say, I
wish
wish
it
you
was
come
that
look
easy.
at this. And they do, they come and do whatever I need. They're very nice. They're very helpful.
it's probably just do that for you.
yeah,
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, but I don't have any trouble. If I do, I just march right over there and shake them out. That's why I keep AT&T. So I don't have any trouble with it. Who pays for that? You said that CARES Act and that the government money's paying.
They're paying for the installation. We'll have to pay for the service, but part of that is tied. I think when they did that project, they had to tie the price for 3 years at a certain level.
You know, they come from all over to do that because they come in the laundry. And I ask them sometimes if I figure out who they are or something, you know, and one of them is from Kentucky. And he said he has to be here for projects. Yeah, but they're all very nice.
It would have been nice to have that already installed and ready to go today when Suddenlink was.
That would have been fun.
It would have been nice to have that today when Suddenlink was down all day. If we would have had that as our service rather than Suddenlink.
Well, I was gone all day, so it was. Wonder how that Georgia election's coming.
They say you won't know till tomorrow, because they've got so many absentee ballots and 3.5 million early ballots. It'll be sometime tomorrow, you know.
Was that everything?
Unless you have other questions, I think that's all that's good for the group right now.
I think my mind's. I tell you, I'm getting old. 105. I aged 2 years.
Yeah, some of these conversations do get ages, don't they?